So my guest today is Sarah Taylor. Me and Sarah are friends. We've connected how long ago it, Sarah? About 15 months ago?
I think so, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so Sarah does a lot of advocating, a lot of campaigning. I did a podcast with you. Was it on, episode 4 or 5?
Yeah, it was one
Something
of the
like that.
earlier ones, yeah.
Yeah, so we just wanted to do a bit of a catch up really and see where we're at. And obviously, me and you speak quite a lot about what's going off with obviously around the family court and the system and things like that.
Yeah.
But we just want it to be spoke about in this arena on our podcast. So, do you want to start off? Well, we'll put the world to rights,
Yeah,
Sarah.
I like that. In case you hadn't noticed.
Yes. Well, yeah, I've noticed. You wanted to start probably at the beginning, when victims first report abuse,
Yeah,
which is ultimately it would be the police, wouldn't it?
absolutely.
Usually.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I often see it where there are numerous failings that continue. It's not getting any better for me. What I see is that it's actually getting worse. Me and you spoke about it, and the amount of frontline police officers, the PC, the one that comes and sees you in your home, they are typically not trained on how to deal with victims, are they? And it's not until usually your dash assessment or it goes to a MARAP meeting where it would then go to a domestic abuse team.
Yeah.
So we both agree that there's so much lack of training for the on the beat Bobby.
Absolutely. They are called out to these cases, which, they're not, it's almost as if, like decades ago, where you'd hear the police saying, oh, it's just a domestic. And it's almost as if it's the same kind of mentality that you see now, just a domestic. But for me, that shows that there is that lack of understanding and knowledge of how serious domestic abuse is. And when the police come out to deal with these cases, they don't seem to have any understanding in particular on coercive controlling behaviour, which is essential because we know coercive controlling behaviour runs right through domestic abuse. And they don't seem to have any understanding on post-separation abuse, which is that continuum of post-separation abuse after the relationship has ended. And at a time where a victim leaves, we also know that that is the most dangerous time of all for the risk of serious harm or being killed by the perpetrator.
Yeah.
So when you consider
because that perpetrator's losing that control, aren't they? So they have to try and regain that back in, and
absolutely,
it heightens up, it ramps up to a different, a whole new level, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and I think that is why it's so important that the police understand that. They have to understand post-separation abuse and how dangerous that can be. And I think also, talking about post-separation abuse, these cases then will often escalate. So, the perpetrator might start reporting the victim, for example, to the social services about the child, about welfare issues that don't really exist, to frighten them, to cause fear, to regain that control. They might call the police and ask for welfare checks, etc. They might serve you court papers to take you to family court, to say they're going to take the children, you're not fit to look after the children. And when these things happen, it's so important that when the police were initially called in the first place, that was documented correctly and that was taken seriously. Because we know post-separation abuse happens. It's not spoken about as much as it should be, but it's very, very common. And you can be sure if you've got children and you've been in a domestic abuse relationship, that is not going to end smoothly. No, not
No.
during that end of the relationship, not during the separation, and not after. Those children are often weaponized by these perpetrators. So we need the police to be aware of these things. They have to be aware of them, because at some point we may need as survivors to rely on that interaction that we had with the police at that point. So it's just so important. Otherwise, you go into family court, and I've even seen instances where, the police have been called, may not have taken it seriously, perhaps had a word with the perpetrator and sort of left it there. And I've even seen cases where that's been held against the victim, as if they were trying to accumulate evidence, call the police just for evidence to try and pretend that they were being abused, to sort of build up some sort of case. And that's what they get
Yeah.
accused of. So it needs to be taken
Yeah.
seriously, you know?
I find it strange, me, how you've got social services that are all over you like a rash because they deem that, it's on the mother's onus that this domestic abuse has happened.
Yeah.
It's the mother's fault, isn't it?
Yeah.
More often than not. But then police don't take it seriously enough, so it's it's not balanced, is it? It's
No.
it's so unbalanced,
No,
the entire thing.
it is. It's incredibly imbalanced. And I mean, the thing is, a mother can't win in these situations very often, because what you'll find is that
No.
the social services, when they're called by the police or whoever it is that makes that referral to them, and there's been domestic abuse, you know, they're not trained on domestic abuse. They're not trained. They're very, very minimal training, if any, as the BBC documentary highlighted. I think it was one third have no training at all, and I think two-thirds have between 1 and 20 hours of training on domestic abuse.
Yeah, well, me and Emma Aaron spoke about it in the couple of
Yeah,
podcasts that we've done.
yeah,
She's highlighted, the failings and things like that, and they have very, very little training on domestic abuse and coercive control. Very, very
absolutely.
little. And I would think that probably 3/4 of their cases actually involve some form of
Yeah.
domestic
I
abuse.
think, from what I remember on the BBC documentary, I believe that is the social worker that they interviewed said that she believes around 90% of her caseload involves domestic abuse. So that tells me that they're not equipped to deal with 90% of their cases that go on to family court, or even before they even get that far. So, what does a mother do? So, on the one hand, they're probably looking at domestic abuse then, if they don't know the dynamics of coercive control, they're looking at it as a safeguarding issue at that point.
Mhm.
So, they're basically
Yeah.
telling women, well, they are telling women, you need to get out of this environment. You need to take your children out of this environment. There are children involved. You have to protect them. It's a child protection matter and safeguarding. And then
Yeah.
the mother will then have to try and escape. It might be that she has to move across the country to a refuge. It might be that they have to try and get the perpetrator out of the home. There are so many obstacles, but she will do that because she wants to protect her children, and that is what she's been advised to do by the professionals. So that's what she's doing. And then after all that, she's got safe, her children are safe, she's got through that. And then when she gets to safety, she's served court papers from the family court. And then she's then forced into going almost back to this perpetrator. Okay, albeit it might be from afar, but she's still forced back into that interaction. She's forced then to allow her children to see him, very often unsupervised. And it is the same professional body, the social workers, that expect this, parental contact at all costs. So why did they make her go through that process and then put her back in the same situation where she can be abused from afar through a child arrangement order? It doesn't make sense. And CAFCAS exactly the same. They're qualified social workers. You know, how can you ask somebody to go through such a traumatic experience and then put them back into the same situation and their children? I just don't understand it. And that demonstrates to me that there is very limited knowledge there on the harm and the impact of what that domestic abuse is doing to that victim, including her co-survivor children as well.
Yeah, I mean, my thought is on it is that if there is any sort of sense that the mother and the children are unsafe, then why are they removing them from everything? Why are they not removing the perpetrator to the other end of the country?
Exactly.
Or to be put in refuge? I don't agree with refuge. I'm not gonna say that I am. That I am sort of supportive of women going into refuge. I know that we have it where we speak about the amazing work that they do, and that I'm sure that's right. I was never put in refuge, but I just think, why are we in situations where women and children are being forced to leave to keep themselves safe, to go somewhere where, I mean, these kids must be absolutely petrified. Not only the mum's trying to hold all this together for the sake of her children, but what the hell is it doing to these kids took out of the schools? They're schooled in refuge. They've lost any sort of normality that was ever there. So the bedrooms, the clothes, the friends, the school, the teachers,
absolutely
everything. Everything has gone. And then we've got campaigns where we want donations for presents for these kids and toiletries and food and all this kind of thing. And I think, what the hell? What the hell is going on where we're putting women and children in these situations when they've done nothing wrong?
I think, coming from the top down, why aren't they taking it again? Why aren't they taking domestic abuse seriously? Why aren't they looking at, why is it that the survivor has to leave? Why is it the survivor that has to endure all this, and the perpetrator gets to kind of, he can have the home, he can stay in the home, he's got a home over his head, or he doesn't have to go far, everything's still convenient for him, everything's still in his life, and the victim and her children are, like you said, catapulted to another side of the country. They're punished for it.
They're the one, but it's all way through the system, isn't it? It seems to be that the mother and the children seem to be punished for the perpetrator's behaviour.
Absolutely. And this is the problem. It's that victim blaming, it's the victim being punished. And, the services, I guess, they're doing their best within the situation because that's what they know, that's what they have to do, that's how it is. But it shouldn't be that way. It should be that these perpetrators are removed and kept away, or tagged or whatever it is. But the priority should always be you keep the victim safe. And of course, where possible, you keep them in their home, where they feel that sense of safety in their community, where their children can carry on going to school and stay with their friends. The fact that they've been through domestic abuse.
I think that's the thing I think that's the thing as well, where, they might have neighbours that are aware that are what's going on in that household, and they kind of are like their support protective network, and they've got family members or whatever, but they are uprooted.
It's not fair
and moved out of the way.
The system isn't fair.
Now,
again,
for women to go into refuge, they have to be high risk, that there is some sense that the perpetrator is a serious danger to her and her children. Now, if that's the case, then should that perpetrator not be locked up straight away? That is my common sense.
Sorry, Deb, it cut out there. I'm so sorry. I didn't hear that. It completely cut out. Sorry.
So I said, if the victim is deemed at such high risk, then surely the perpetrator should be locked away for it.
Absolutely. It means that he is capable, that they have assessed her to be in such danger that he is capable of causing serious harm to her. He is a danger, and he should be treated as such. He should be
Yeah.
arrested, and it's him that should be taken away. And the other issue is as well when the police come out and say, well, this is a civil matter. For example, it might be his home as well. Well, I'm not going anywhere, this kind of thing. But ultimately, it's not, is it? It's not a civil matter. It's part of domestic abuse. It's part of post-separation abuse. These perpetrators shouldn't have the same rights as the victims to stay in these locations and stay in their homes when they've perpetrated that level of harm. They should be held
Yeah.
accountable, and the victim should be able to stay where she is and kept safe. And I think this comes down to how seriously are they taking domestic abuse and coercive control. You know, it doesn't seem to me that they are taking it that seriously.
I did. There's been an article in, I think it's the Guardian, where they are looking at tagging. So victims have a GPS, and I have been saying this
Yeah,
since
you have.
2021.
Yeah, yeah,
I've had a petition going, and finally they are going to look into it seriously. So it's already active in Spain and other parts of the world. So they are actually now, I think, taking it seriously, because I've said all along, it is the only way that they are ever going to be able to keep them safe, so that they are alerted when a perpetrator is coming sort of in any
absolutely.
distance where they're not safe to be in that area.
Yeah,
It gives them that opportunity and time to go find somewhere safe, and it alerts the police at the same time.
absolutely. And I think that makes sense, doesn't it? It keeps them safe. It keeps that perpetrator away from them, and it holds them accountable as well, because they know exactly where they are, what they're planning on
Yeah,
doing. It would demonstrate stalking behavior. They'd have the
yeah,
evidence there. And importantly, it would
yeah.
keep that victim safe with peace of mind as well. Because the problem is, when you've gone through
But
domestic abuse,
it wouldn't
sorry, go on.
it wouldn't have that trauma,
No,
would they? They wouldn't have the trauma of having to go and report it to police, and the police having to say, well, how can you prove it? He could drive up and down there. That's not, we can't do anything about it.
exactly,
And
exactly.
do you know to people that have never experienced that level of fear,
Mm,
they wouldn't understand how it makes that victim feel, just seeing that car, that van, that perpetrator driving past their home.
exactly. And that's something that stays with them as well, long after, isn't it?
Yeah,
Looking at cars that look similar, looking at number plates of the cars, or
yeah,
looking at a police car going past. Is there any reason it's going past? And it does. It's not paranoia. It's a trauma response to something that's been very real in their life, and they're
yeah,
constantly in that state of high vigilance, aren't they? In that state of
yeah.
panic and fear. And I do think that it would be such peace of mind for them to know that they would become aware if that perpetrator was anywhere near them, and that it would be dealt with, and that they are safe. I mean, that would give me peace of mind. I know that, and I think it's a
Yeah,
sensible thing to
it
do.
would have, yeah, yeah, it would have definitely, with me, it would have definitely made me feel a little bit calmer about,
Absolutely.
if I knew that I were being kept as safe as possible,
Yeah.
because ultimately all we get is keep your windows locked, keep your doors locked,
Yeah.
right? By the time if you've had chance to even pick up the phone and ring the police, by the time they've got to you, the perpetrator could be in your house and done something serious
Yeah.
to you
Absolutely.
or your children.
Yeah.
And there wouldn't be that time, wouldn't be there for that to be allowed to happen, because the minute that GPS alarm goes off, it alerts both her and the police.
Absolutely.
That's it. They go and lock him up. They could track him.
Exactly. And I think as well with that, obviously, because these perpetrators don't tend to stick either to any restraining orders, any orders at all that are put in place, non-mol orders. Very often they won't stick to them, and there is no consequence for that. But if they were tagged and you knew it would alert the police and they would come out, at least you've got that safety net of protection, and knowing what we know about stalker behavior in post-separation abuse, I really do think that having those tags it's vital, especially where they show that they cannot be trusted, they're not listening to these orders. They're not, they're breaching these orders, and they're happy to do that. And I think just the fact that these perpetrators are in that mindset shows how dangerous they are, and that they don't care. You know, they probably feel there's no consequences to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
To their behaviour.
Yeah. We shouldn't be having to wait sort of 5, 6, 7 times
No.
for an order being breached.
No, absolutely
It
not.
should be you've got one opportunity, you breach it, tag goes on,
Yeah.
that's it. There is no ifs, buts, yeah, but no.
100%.
It goes straight on them, and that's it.
Yeah.
That is it. Done.
Yeah, I agree.
And you would have that sense of safety to be able to know that you can go to your local supermarket and not have to browse that car park thinking you're just looking over your shoulder every single minute or every day, aren't you?
Absolutely. And I don't think people realize when they haven't been through this is that it literally it takes over everything. It absorbs your life to the point that you are too worried to go out the front door. You don't know where they are. You don't know what their motive is. You don't know what information they're looking for. It's all these things that they could even physically cause you harm, or things they could try and look for in you that they could use against you at a later date. There's so many reasons people are fearful of these people knowing their movements, knowing where they are.
I know, but for me it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer, and I think that if they do go ahead with this scheme, I think it wouldn't be long before they started seeing a difference.
Absolutely.
I really do.
Yeah.
Because it would be a deterrent for serious, perpetrators that are seriously dangerous men. But then it wouldn't solve the coercive control side of it,
No.
the manipulation where they will use, like you said, the family court system.
Absolutely.
And it's the way that they go about using that system, isn't it?
The thing
They know
is,
how it works.
yeah, I mean, when they use the family court system and they're weaponizing the children to do that, they're in effect stalking as well. They are stalking because they have a new way now of finding out information about you. So when I was just talking about you don't know what they're looking for to use against you in the future, these are times when they can do that through the family court and through the children. For example, if there's enforced contact, what conversations are going on that you don't know about? What information are they trying to extract from children about you, about your private life, your personal life? What are they then going to do with that information? How are they going to twist that and hold that against you in a court? And this plays into financial abuse, because they can find out potentially about your finances, certainly emotional abuse and your well-being, because you're constantly at high alert. What are they finding out? What information are they trying to extract from the children? How are they going to twist that and manipulate that in the court? There's, like I said, the financial side of it as well. We also know that they'll potentially sometimes try to take the children completely. So it won't just, it might start with, for example, overnight contact. They might want to build that up then to holiday time and then extend that 50-50, and all of a sudden you're being served court papers that you're completely unfit as a mother, and they actually want to remove your children completely. So it goes from one, and it does go from one extreme to the other, because when they were living with you, I think a lot of women find they did nothing to help with the children. They didn't do anything with the children. They weren't bothered by the children until they left. And all of a sudden, they were concerned that they weren't seeing their children anymore, even though they made no effort, even when they were all living together. And all of a sudden, they want to be involved. And like I said, it goes from that extreme to, they want full contact, a residency order made in their favour.
Transfer of residency.
Yeah. And very often they will get that as well. It's the ultimate form of control, isn't it, for a mother to have your child taken from you. There is no other insult to a mother, form of control like that, than to take your babies and your children from you. And they know that. They absolutely know that.
Yeah.
And all they have to do, All they have to do while the victim is there telling the truth, telling the exact truth of what happened, and all they have to do is say, well, they just don't like me. They just don't like, the children liking me. They don't like the children spending any time with me. And of course, that's the parental alienation card then, isn't it? And once the parental alienation card is there, that's it. The voices are taken away from the children. The voices are taken away from the survivor mother, usually. And, there's certainly no let's get the wishes and feelings of the children. That doesn't exist. They do not take any wishes and feelings of the children once parental alienation is in that court arena. Not at all.
Yeah. We spoke about what sort of things could be put in place for the system to be better. I mean, that is my sort of campaign, is the Tag an app to be put in place, which is all good and well if that abuse is, physical, or, that you can evidence it properly. But when it's coercive control, then a tag isn't useful at all.
No.
But there is other common sense things put in there, isn't there?
Yeah.
And the most obvious common sense to me would be the appropriate training in for professionals that are dealing with victims.
Absolutely.
And for me, there needs to be training right across the board.
Yeah.
Right across the board.
100%.
And I can't believe that there isn't.
No, it is shocking. I mean, just talking about the social services now, the lack of training that they have in domestic abuse, when, the majority of their caseload is, I would say the majority is going to involve domestic abuse and coercive controlling behavior. You haven't got anybody really then protecting the child in those situations, because they don't understand it. They don't understand the damage that, that's doing on the child. They don't understand post-separation abuse, which is really, really worrying. Post-separation abuse kills. It definitely can kill. And if it's not just that it's opening that window of opportunity for a perpetrator to physically get hold of a victim through contact, child contact, etc., even if it's not that, it's the damage that can be done emotionally to a mother. I say mother because it is usually a mother, where, it's significant damage and harm to the point that they could commit suicide, to the point that they will potentially turn to alcohol, or, take drugs or some self sort of medication. And they will do that just to find some comfort and peace from this situation that they're in. But, it's killing them. Post-separation abuse, again, it can take their jobs. I've heard of cases where there are mothers that have lost their jobs because they've been accused of emotionally harming children in the family court through parental alienation judgments, which may mean they can't work with vulnerable people anymore. They could be nurses or doctors or social workers themselves, or, teachers, a wealth of profession that work with vulnerable people. They've lost their career then. They've lost their financial income from that. And when you think of everything that can happen to them, that's their entire life changed to the point that it's not even recognizable anymore. And they're trying to live that existence, and they don't know who they are anymore. Their life has changed that much because of what these perpetrators have done to them. It's not surprising that so many of these women are taking their own lives. And I'll be honest, I've been there. I've been there in terms of how I have felt taking my own life in the past, going through family court. It definitely made me contemplate it. I'm glad I didn't now, but I get it, and I understand why they would feel like that, 100%.
Yeah, and that really cuts deep with me, because I think that we've spoke about it, where I really do think that there is a hell of a lot more women that are actually taking their own lives than what is statistically recorded.
Absolutely.
Because let's face it, statistics are only a guidance. They're not a true reflection of the reality of what's happening.
No.
And it's no secret that I did use alcohol as a coping mechanism. as many women do.
Absolutely.
And it's a way of numbing out what is happening.
Yeah.
And it really, I think we need to raise a lot more awareness around the suicidal thought process, because ultimately within post-separation abuse, a lot of that could be stopped.
Absolutely.
Where if services are more aware of how coercive control works, it could be nipped in the bud.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think as well, it's understanding that that is a response. It's a perfectly natural response to that level of trauma, and again, this is another big part of post-separation abuse that really needs some highlighting and awareness raised on it, is the fact that their mental health, that rapid deterioration in someone's mental health is held against them then in that court arena. And actually, it's that court arena and that environment that's caused it. There's no accountability of that. There's no self-reflection of these professionals of that. It's always victim blaming. And that's something that needs to be seen and heard. Is, come on, this is an understandable thing. Look at the pressure this woman is under. Look at the stress she's under. She's having the threat of having her children taken from her, or has had them taken from her. How would anybody react? We could go into fight, flight, fawn, freeze, and we shouldn't be judged for any of that, or any of our coping mechanisms. We should all be supported, and our children should be supported together. There can't be a better outcome then, because they've got that support and that understanding, that knowledge in place to get them through the worst time of their life, and that is needed to be, they need to recognize that.
Yeah. You just mentioned to me that you wanted, before we recorded, that you wanted to put a few things straight.
Yeah.
So go on, this is your platform.
Okay, yeah. I think, some people out there seem to think that I'm a bit of a man hater. So I've been accused of anyway. And I just, I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair. I'm not a man hater. I'm not a man hater at all. I do think this is gender-based, this crime of coercive control, and it is a crime. Post-separation abuse, coercive control, domestic abuse, and it has been from the beginning of time. This has happened, and women have been oppressed. We know this from our history books. We know this. We know this statistically. We know this from research that's been done, not just here in the UK, but all over the world. We can't get away from that. And I know sometimes people like to present me with different facts and figures, but we all know that male violence against women is much more common than women violence against men. However, I do accept that it happens the other way around. And I do believe very much that if a man is abused, then he should be supported 100%. Yeah. There is no place for abuse. Not in my world. No. There's no place for abuse. And it should always be called out. Always be called out, and people should always be supported. And I just wanted to get that out there. My own experience, obviously, of abuse is not from other women, it's from men. Men have perpetrated abuse onto me as a woman. So that's my lived experience. That's where I've done my research, a lot of the research that I've done, because it resonates with me. And, I want to help other women who are in that situation. But believe you me, I very much believe that men should be supported, and that no woman should be abusing a man. It's not right. I just wanted to get that point across. And I'm so pleased that there are organisations that do support men, and that's vital. It's really, really important.
Yeah. And same as, we are Resolute, but we are lived experience, and we are female. We're women, and we can't sort of, sit here and say it from a male's perspective, because we're not men, we're women. Absolutely. And that's as simple as that. I don't think it's fair that every time we kind of mention, we're shut down by men. The minute that you mention anything about a woman being abused, or a woman, speaking out about something, we're automatically shut down by men, aren't we? Saying, yes, but it happens to men. Nobody's disagreeing that it doesn't happen to men.
No. it's that, but what about men? You know, you put a post on, which is an
Yes.
MVOG post. I call them MVOG, but I know it's children as well. It's okay, girls and children.
Eh,
But
Yeah.
you know, I say that because I come at it from this point of view. I'm a woman. I've been abused by a man. Again, you know, I loved my father. He was a really good man. My grandfather, my brother-in-law. I have friends that are men. I have no issue with men. I just have an issue with abuse. That is it. I have an issue
Yeah.
with abuse, and I will call it out, and I will unapologetically fight for mother survivors who are going through post separation abuse and domestic abuse. I was one myself, so I will always, always fight and advocate for them unapologetically. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but at the same time, you know, it's so important that men who are being abused are supported, and that they have, you know, support areas that they can go to as well if they are being abused, and that's right too, 100%.
Yeah. I'm glad we got that straight, Sarah.
Me too. Me too.
Right. So I'm gonna love you and leave you, and we'll catch up very soon. I need to speak to you later on anyway about obviously future projects and things. But I'm gonna stop us recording now, and thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, thank you.
Um,
Been a pleasure, Deb.
it's been fab chatting. Yeah, I'll speak to you soon.